everyone to our introduction to backpacking. First and foremost, we want to thank our sponsors, REI, Tecnu, Oboes. They are the official 52 Hike Challenge sponsors for 2022, and we really appreciate their support. They actually allow us to do these types of workshops for you all, in addition to many other things that we do. So we are excited to join you. I'm Karla.
I'm Phillip.
And we're the co-founders of the 52 Hike Challenge. We have learned so much just in our years of hiking, and we fell in love with it, and it was just so transformative for us, and we wanted to share that transformation with all of you. And it's been really an honor to do this work. So we're going to talk a little bit about our agenda for today. We're going to have our introduction. We're going to go over the mental and physical preparation needed for backpacking, picking a location, research, weather, 10 essentials, clothing, footwear, backpacks, shelter and sleep, cooking and meals, and of course, our tips. So let's get ready to learn together. So one of the things that I love to share in the beginning of this backpacking class is how this is one of my first backpacking experiences, and I fell in love with backpacking. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. My soul just feels so peaceful when I hike into a place and I'm able to camp and just stay there. Like there's something just magical about pulling everything in, you know, setting up camp, being with friends, cooking, looking up at the stars at night. There's just something really awesome about that experience, in addition to the fact that you get to go to places that are usually very unique, and you cannot get there without going on foot. So this is actually one of my favorite things to do when it comes to the outdoors. So.
All right, so we're going to ask you to use the chat, and let's go ahead and actually, for those of you on Zoom, you can actually vote. We have a little question: who has backpacked before? So we kind of want to know who's in the room, and just kind of like your level of experience here. All right, and we've got answers coming in real time.
For those on Facebook, feel free to add in the chat if you've backpacked before or you have not. We just like to kind of see where everyone is at in terms of their experience backpacking.
And of course, after you voted, go ahead and put into the chat window what you'd like to take away.
Definitely. Same with everyone on Facebook. Let us know what you're hoping to learn. We definitely want to make sure to answer your questions. Questions will be answered at the end. So.
All right. Looks like we got a pretty good number here.
Okay.
So, looks like quite a few people are new to this, and that's awesome. So we're excited to share with you all our tips and tricks and all that stuff, so that way you feel more comfortable getting outdoors. Okay. So moving right along, because we do have quite a bit of information to cover. If you haven't been to our website, obviously our website is 52hikechallenge.com, and we did some updates. We actually threw a few more things on there. On the header, you'll see we have a section called education, and we just updated it with a lot of our videos on getting started. We're actually launching a summer series challenge. We're going to talk about that towards the end. And just wanted to point you to the direction of, where we keep all of our resources and all the information, so that way, it's not just all in this one presentation, but it's over a course of pretty much over years of us developing this. Okay, so what you need to get started backpacking. All right, so basically, when you're going out there and it's your first time, it can be a little bit scary. You put on your backpack, you got all this equipment on you, and you might feel kind of heavy. at the onset of it, and that's okay. You know, obviously putting on the backpack and making sure that your sternum and your you know, around the waist is actually nice and tight, and not carrying so much weight on top of your shoulders is really going to help you. And getting out there and actually carb camping is another way of mentally preparing. So going out to a place where there's a campsite and actually unpacking your items and you know, setting up your tent and all that stuff is actually going to help you. So that way you're not going out there for the very first time and unpacking it out there in the wilderness and going, what goes where? Okay.
Well, I wanted to add that the main thing we want to actually state here is that you're going to want to start hiking, obviously, first and foremost, which is, you know, when you get out there and you're on the trail, you're learning what your needs are as a hiker, right? So that's why as 52, taking the 52 hike challenge is such a great foundation to start with, getting out there with those 1 and 2 and 3 miles, 4 miles, and then putting that weight in your pack as you're going, right? So those are the first steps. And then as you continue hiking, you're going to come across situations that are going to be uncomfortable. And you're going to, you know, maybe at some point when you're first starting out, you're like, I don't know if I can hike 5 miles. Usually most backpacking trips are going to be, you know, like a 7-mile, you know, hike in. There's many different backpacking trips you can do, but let's just say you pick something that's like 7 miles. Well, how do you train for that, right? Like you want to go out and you want to actually push yourself to feel comfortable that you can do that, and encouraging yourself when you feel a little bit scared. So I know for myself, like the training was super important in the beginning, knowing that, you know what, my body and my mind is going to say, I can't do this. But just taking those little steps and saying one foot in front of the other really helped me. So when I put on the backpack that Phillip was talking about, then, and I felt discouraged, or I felt like, oh my gosh, this is hard, because now you're adding a lot. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but you're going to feel like this is so hard. How am I going to do this? But having that foundation of the hiking first and foremost will really help you to realize, I'm ready for this. Like I can do this.
Yeah. So as you're going out and you're doing your day hikes, make sure to train with some weight. I recommend putting in some water and carrying like about a gallon or 2 of water inside your backpack. And as you're going uphill, that's where you really want to train with the weight. But once you get to the top, empty out the water, because then you don't have all that extra weight on your knees coming down. And so that's a good way of training. All right. So what does it look like when you're backpacking? Basically probably going about 50%, 65% of your max heart rate. You're not going to go like, you know, really hard and intense. Okay. You kind of want to go at a leisure pace. You know, you can go ahead and get started with some short aerobic exercises, you know, increase your heart rate as you're going. And you really want to actually kind of start off with going out hiking maybe several times during the week, and going out. I would prepare for about 8 weeks before you go out backpacking. So give yourself two months, and just kind of increasing the elevation as you go. So we threw in some stats here from a book, Conditioning for Outdoor Fitness. I'm not going to read it, but you're welcome to check that out. Increasing your weight, increasing your mileage about 10 to 15% each week is a pretty good rule of thumb.
All right, so let's talk about, you know, let's say you're fit, you're ready for your first backpacking trip. Like, what are some of the first things you need to do, right? So first thing is get inspired, find your location. I know for me, my second backpacking trip was Havasu Pie Falls, and I saw pictures of this place and was like, I need to go there. And, you know, that was my inspiration. So anything you do, you want to start with that inspiration. So pick a spot. And once you know that spot, then you can put together that training program. And as you're getting ready, obviously you need to do your research. Okay, so here's a really, really good tip. You're definitely going to want to research like a year in advance. Okay, and why I'm saying this is because a lot of backpacking places, a lot of backpacking locations require a 6-month permit application. So that means that you need to be ready to go at 7 a.m. 6 months prior to the date of your the date that you want to go hiking or when you want to go backpacking. And that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get those permits, especially if it's a really popular place. So first and foremost, do your research. Make sure that you can ask different people for their suggestions. You can ask friends. You can go to your local outdoor retailer and get that information for, suggestions on backpacking trips. In addition to that, you're going to want to, if it's your first time and you're not 100% confident in going not only by yourself or with friends, you might want to join a trip with someone like REI. In addition to that, if you're really just wanting to dip your toe in, we definitely recommend that you first go camping beforehand to see how you feel in a tent, and in addition to practicing. But one of the great things you can do as well is pick something that is maybe like a 2 to 3 mile hike in. That means you're backpacking for those 2 to 3 miles. So that way, if something happens, you're not feeling super comfortable, it's really easy for you to head out and make those kinds of decisions where it's not like you've committed to this really long trip. And so like, I know where we live here in Orange County, there's a place in Crystal Cove, which is really close to us. And they have something very similar to this 2 to 3 mile hike in. It's super great because it's right by our house, and it would be a great first timers backpacking trip. So maybe get some recommendations for something like that. In addition to picking your location, you're going to definitely want to understand elevation gain, because that really can make the difference between having an amazing backpacking trip and one that you really weren't prepared for. So that's why, as you're building up your hiking foundation, understanding what that means. Phillip, do you want to add anything about elevation and how that works?
Well, basically, you're going to look at the mileage and the elevation gain. And I'm not going to get into like algebra, but basically it's that kind of slope. And if you have something that's only like 2 miles and 1,000-foot gain, that's actually kind of steep. But if you are going on a trip, I'm not going to say don't go on that trip, but you're going to go up maybe and take more breaks and just kind of go at a slow pace. And of course, just really try to enjoy the environment. It's not about, having a death march or anything like that. It's just, really get out there and enjoy the atmosphere.
Perfect. All right, so let's talk a little bit about research. And we've got, there's so much, like I said, to learn. You're going to want to definitely, as you're doing your research, once you've picked your location, you need to understand what I talked about earlier. Do I need a permit or not? And then what about water and those logistics, right? There's a lot to do. So the good news is, like I said, starting a year to 6 months in advance is a really great place to start, because that's going to give you plenty of time to look up this information. So one of the most important things to do, according to not only Leave No Trace, but Recreate Responsibly guidelines, is know before you go. That means being responsible for yourself, okay? That means doing your research beforehand, understanding if there's any trail closures, road closures, so you don't set yourself up for failure. So basically, as you're doing this research, let's just stick to Havasu Pie Falls. They had been closed. I think they're still maybe closed. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that, but they were closed, I know, up until last year due to COVID. So that would really be unfortunate if you drove all the way there and then you get there and it's closed, right? So that's your responsibility to check on those types of things before you head out, in addition to researching, what kind of flora and fauna am I going to come across? What kind of animals, what kind of plants? That is really going to help you as you are packing your pack for your trip. In addition to understanding like what towns are nearby, like in case you need to, you know, is there reception around? Is there food? The permits that we've talked about. Do I need a campfire permit? And knowing the ranger station phone numbers in case of an emergency. So some tips for finding routes, in addition to, obviously there's tons of apps out there like CalTopo All Trails, there's books. You know, as you're thinking about those logistics, you're also going to want to think about like water sources. So when I did the John Muir Trail, I used Gut Hook, and that told me where I could expect water on the trail, which would help me plan how much water I was carrying at all times. So just recognize that you will need to plan accordingly, and that you want to make sure that you have enough time and resources to do that research. And so you have an amazing trip. So the other thing that's really important is to ensure that you're checking your conditions for that time period that you're planning to go do your backpacking trip. For example, right now it's summer, and you know, I would not recommend going to do a hike into the Grand Canyon when it's boiling hot right now. So you would want to find out, when are the best times to go do this trail that I'm looking at, because the weather can really, really impact your trip, and not only your trip, but your own personal safety. And here at 52 Hike Challenge, one of the things we're most concerned about is making sure that you understand the weather conditions, prepare appropriately, plan accordingly, and remember that the trails, the mountains are always going to be there. So if it's really hot during the day, maybe you go earlier in the morning, or you go later in the evening when things are cooler. But when it comes to backpacking, you want to make sure you're prepared with those conditions. So here are a few links that we've listed: weather.gov and mountainforecast.com, so that you can check the weather before you get out there.
Okay, so just, it's always important to bring those 10 essentials. And what are those 10 essentials? They're basically the items that you would need just in case of any emergency. These are things that you should bring in your day pack. And it's still true to bring those same things for your backpack as well. I'll go through them real quick. Map and compass, you know, just knowing where you're going, some sort of sun protection, sunglasses, sunscreen. I usually like to bring a SPF 30. Some people, if you want more protection, you can go with like a 50, or in a higher elevation, you actually do want to go with like a 50. Insulation, extra clothing. Illumination will be a flashlight or some sort of headlamp. First aid supplies, I usually carry a very small, limited amount. Of course, if you're wilderness first aid, you're probably going to carry a much bigger pack, but I carry enough to really cover the blisters and some of those things. I always have these waterproof matches with me as well inside my kit, and some sort of repair tools. I usually have a multi-tool. The nutrition, which is usually extra food. It's one of the essentials in case you're lost, and a little extra water, as well as bringing maybe a filter with you, and emergency shelter too. Okay, so let's talk about some of the clothing that you might want to bring. Very similar to what you would bring on a day pack or a day hike. We have a going from my left to right, going into a waterproof jacket. Again, you never know the conditions. I really like these pants. They're zip-off pants. You can convert them from regular long length to shorts, and they usually have a SPF rating. I believe they're SPF maybe 50. T-shirt or a shirt. I'm actually wearing one where you can actually roll up the sleeves, and it's actually got some nice ventilation in it. And of course, some socks. We recommend sticking with non-cotton, something that's gonna breathe. It's usually polyester or some sort of synthetic, and those socks generally, like smart wool is also a pretty good one to get as well. Okay, so moving on to this, looks like we have a few items in here for possible cold environments, like a puffy jacket or a vest. I like wearing a vest a lot of the times. I usually wear a base layer of my vest. I'll wear like my jacket, and then I'll wear something out in addition to that in a colder environment. I know you like the camp sandals.
Yeah,
And
definitely. Yeah, and all of this, we're building upon, you're already hiking at this point, right? So you have your collection of hiking gear and clothing, the base layers that we talk about, that you're going to be using throughout the hiking. And then, of course, when you're backpacking, you're going to want to add on these additional items like your puffy jacket for the night when it's cold, those gloves, like Phillip said. Definitely bringing that rain jacket is super important, especially if you're doing like a multi-day backpack. You just never know when you're out there. And carrying extra socks, that really makes a difference at night, changing from your day socks into something that's clean. And so there's just so much to add on, and it also depends on the weather.
Yeah, I was gonna say, one of my luxuries that I carry with me is they're down socks. And when I first got into backpacking, now you don't wear those socks at all when you're hiking, but you can put them on when you're in your sleeping bag, and they're super warm. And so it's a really nice luxury. They're down, so they're nice and light. Anyway, moving on. So footwear as well.
Yep.
So if you're gonna wear, if you're carrying a pack that's over 30 pounds, you want to actually have more support in the ankle area, and that could be like a nice mid. We are showing some mids here, and that's good for supporting the ankle.
Yep. These are the latest Oboz Sawtooth X here on the, well, I don't know about you all, but on my left. So, all right. So there's so much that you need to start collecting for backpacking. Okay. So it's a lot of gear, and, we recommend you take your time as you are gathering these items. Maybe as a treat, as you're doing your 52 hike challenge, maybe every 10 hikes you go out and you purchase one of these items you're going to need for your big backpacking trip. Maybe that's graduation at the end of your 52 hikes. I don't know. But if you go to our website under 52hikechallenge.com pages, and then we have backpacking dash checklist, you can actually grab links to these items. So REI has a really great little checklist that I've laminated, and I keep in a little plastic clear container with all of my backpacking and camping items. So it really helps me to check that off as I'm going and getting ready to backpack. So we're actually going to talk about the gear because, there's so much stuff that we need to show you today. So one of the first things that when you decide to go backpacking, you're going to want to invest in is going to be your backpacking pack. And sorry about that. So let's first start with this quick little note. So you can actually go with something traditional like this Osprey pack here, or you can go ultra lightweight with everything backpacking wise. Okay, this actually we're not going to really focus. Ultralight is a whole topic in itself. Today we're going to focus more on, we're letting you know just some introduction items, but recognize that the more ultra lightweight you go, the more costly this gear is going to be. So we're kind of focusing more on your traditional gear. I've started with the traditional gear. Believe it or not, I do not personally own pretty much any ultra lightweight things. Very little do I own any ultra lightweight things. And if you fall in love with backpacking, I know I have a friend who suffers from osteoporosis. She has gone full on lightweight. She does not want to carry any extra weight. And I totally understand that. So I wanted to start off by letting you know that there are options out there, but recognize that the costs are going to definitely change as you go ultra lightweight. So let's start with that. I wanted to give you guys a little note on that. And so obviously, depending on where you're hiking, the conditions, what you're doing, you can start with something as light as a 40-liter pack and then go up to 65 liters plus. So what does that mean? That just means a bigger pack to allow you to put and store more things. For example, like when Phillip has gone on his mountaineering expeditions, he's had to bring his biggest pack he has.
Right. Yes.
And to carry all his gear.
Yeah. So it would be very typical for summer to have a 40-liter pack. And again, we're not trying to bring a lot of different wardrobes. You know, it's not about fashion out there. A lot of times you tend to wear an item. Well, at least I tend to wear an item for sweating during the day. And then I usually have something that I change it, something clean that I change into at night. And then I'm usually wearing the other, you know, the sweaty shirt again the next day.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're not carrying like a ton of items. Okay. And don't worry, everyone else is doing the same thing. So, you know, it's very normal. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to that. On the John Muir Trail, you know, I literally lived off of like, I think it was one pair of pants and 2 shirts and then my sleeping pajamas. So it was, yes, you're going to be forgiven if you smell. But anyhow, so yeah, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about some of the options we have here.
Yeah, and I also usually bring about a 55 liter for something in the snow. All right, so talking about shelter, you know, in the summertime, you're going to go with more of a 3-season tent, and these are the items on the right. They look a lot more flimsy, a lot more breathable. They usually have these like mesh, you know, nets and very lightweight. And those are going to be the ones that you want to choose for the summertime. It's mainly for all seasons except for winter. And the 4-season tents, like the ones on the left, very much more robust. They're going to have more of like another wall for insulation, like the double wall. And they're usually breathable. So, you know, don't worry about that part. But they are going to keep you a little bit warmer for the 4-season. And also they're a lot more robust for the snow that might accumulate on top of the tent. They tend to be heavier, of course, and I want to say pricier. Okay.
Quick note, did we chat about the Bivvy?
Yeah, so the Bivvy is a one-man tent. It's kind of like a one-man tent. It's actually just enough to go around the sleeping bag.
Yeah.
And that little pull, it kind of goes up over your face, so that way you can kind of have something, you know, just so it's not on top of you. Okay, so moving right into different choices for sleeping bags and sleeping pads. So when you're looking for pads, they usually have what's called an R factor. And the R factor, here we have a chart by Thermarest, and it's showing these different R values. And something that's an R1 versus an R3. R3 would be 3 times more insulating than an R1. Okay, so that's kind of the factor to go by. And you can see by the chart, like something like an R1, R2, those are really more or less for summer, very thin. Usually as the ones who blow up, they tend to get more loft or more thickness, and that'd be better. I usually go with a minimum of a R2.7 or above. And whenever I go into the winter environments, I'll actually bring both. I'll actually bring the inflatable, and I'll bring the, this is a Z light. It actually compresses like a Z. Oh, great, we got some props. So here we go. So here's the Z light, and then this is a blow up. And so we can all check that out. It's also a really nice luxury to have a blow up pillow, and we got that one featured on the top. Regarding the sleeping bag, you tend to want to find a sleeping bag that is right for the temperature that you're going in. I have a 35-degree bag. I usually use that one in the summer. And I have a 10-degree bag that I usually bring in the winter. I happen to have a -20 because I did some mountaineering and in very cold environments, but normally you wouldn't usually use that. So you want to, if you get something too heavy, let's say you bring a 0 bag in the summer, you're just going to be so hot, you're just going to like not want to be in there at all. And the ones that are the mummy bags are a lot more tapered, and they get really close to you, so that way it keeps all your body heat in. So if you want something in the summer, I usually go with something a little bit more square, something a little bit more roomy, so that way I have that extra insulation or extra room. Okay, so moving on to some of the other items that we like to bring when we're backpacking. Definitely, I mean, I kind of always bring some of these items, even in my day pack. Like I always bring the hydration bladder that's on the top left here. It's made by Camelback. You put water in there. It's a hose. You can drink out of it as you're walking. Versus like the Nalgene bottle or a really durable bottle, which is on the far side of the screen, where you usually have to kind of stop, pull it out, drink, and then put it back in your backpack.
What I usually do with the Nalgene bottle, it's twofold, is I keep my electrolytes in there and I drink my water out of my reservoir. And then if it's really cold at night, you could actually heat up water, put it in that Nalgene bottle, make sure it is tightly closed, and you can actually put it inside of your sleeping bag with you and it will seriously warm you up.
Yeah.
So that's just a little tip that we've learned throughout the years.
Yeah.
But having those electrolytes is really important when you're backpacking. So make sure you have some way of having replenishing those fluids you're going to be losing as you're hiking and, you know, and carrying that extra weight.
Yeah. So, and make sure it is more of an Nalgene bottle, something very durable. Because if you put hot water in something that's flimsy, that's going to be a different story. Okay, so moving right along to like bear canisters, those are really important when you're going into bear country. You know, you definitely want to put all your items in there, including your toothpaste, anything that smells. Yeah. You put that into the bear canister, and you put that bear canister further away from you in your campsite. So you're not going to put it like next to you. You're not going to, you might be, you know, while you're cooking dinner, you might want to use it, maybe sit on it if you want to. But other than that, you really want to keep it away from you because, you know, the bears still can smell. And, you know, if they were to try to get to your food, it's usually very durable plastic, so they can't break it or open it.
Yeah, you definitely want to at the end of the night, and we'll talk about this in tips, but when you store it away, you don't want it too close to your tent. And also remind yourself to like put it somewhere maybe or with rocks around it, like somewhere where it's not going to roll out down the hill or something. Yep. So just a little side note.
Yeah. Definitely bring poles. I like bringing poles, and of course a spot device. That one is a GPS signal for in case you're ever in distress. Something could happen, and you know, there's an SOS button on there. It's a subscription. You can push the button and a helicopter will come to you. So anyway, you can check that out some more later.
All right. So my favorite part about backpacking is meals at night after a long day. And we're going to talk a little bit about food in a later slide, but basically you can purchase these ready-made meals. Mountain House is one of the most popular brands out there. And there's so many different brands. You just have to, something you could do beforehand is test these meals out and see if you like it or not. So that way, when you're out there, you know that you're eating something that you're actually going to want to eat. So that's something great to start trying out. Or, you know, if you want to dehydrate your own meals, go for it. You know, whenever I do an overnight backpacking trip, sometimes I pack a full-on beautiful dinner that I pre-package at home. I don't mind carrying it in. And then it's like a gourmet meal outside and, you know, watching the stars, and I'm out the next morning. So you can get really creative. It just depends on how much you want to carry and how you want to backpack. So I personally love my Jetboil. Phil gave me one a long time ago, and I absolutely love it. I use it every morning to heat up my water for my coffee. I heat up water for my oatmeal. That's what I typically eat. And then obviously you're going to want to start collecting these items, whether it's your stove, your utensils, you know, even these, there's these Sea to Summit collapsible bowls that I love using. So there's lots of things that you're going to want to think about when it comes to cooking and how you're going to be not only eating your food, but do you want to bring a cup with you for coffee, for example? And as we mentioned earlier, those electrolytes, really important. So pre-packaging your food and having all of that, which is what we're going to talk about in a little bit. And then also knowing that if you are in the snow and you're going to be out there, that propane that goes into the other stoves, they don't work at certain temperatures.
About 31 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So once it starts dropping below freezing, they don't work very well.
Yeah.
And then you're going to move into something like an MSR stove where you're actually going to put pressure in there and ignite it.
Yep. So this is a stove that you would want to use, like Phillip said, in the snow. Know how to use it before you get out there. We just wanted to give you some examples of things you're going to need to bring with you when you're cooking outdoors. So a little bit about when you're backpacking multi-day, you're definitely going to want to most likely filter water at some point, right? So these are some examples of some of the filtering options. We personally, with, when I did the JMT, we had this bag with us, and it was really great because you grab your water, you hang it, and then it's a gravity filter. So it, would fill up your hydration bladder really easily, or bottles. It just makes it that much easier. I also use this Sawyer squeeze filter, not the mini. The mini is more of like, I would recommend for emergencies, like a backup emergency filter, but the squeeze, the regular, is really great. I use the bags. I know that on the JMT, a lot of people had their water bottle, the what's that really long skinny one called? Is it Smart Water?
Smart Water.
A lot of people were using, yeah, and they were using that to filter. So that's another great one. This pump style filter is another one. You basically put this little pump in the water, and then you pump out the water. That's another option. I personally do not use the tablets. I have one in my emergency kit as a backup. You could use this pen, same thing. I don't personally use that. I really just enjoy the filter.
Yeah, and the SteriPen is a ultraviolet UV pen. Again, if you feel comfortable about it, I personally like to filter my water. But anyway, these are some options out there.
All right, so talking about food, we need to, when you're planning your trips, this is an example of, like, for example, what I was packing for the John Muir Trail. So you need to figure out how much food are you gonna need. Because you are backpacking, putting on a lot more, you are working a lot more calories and you're carrying extra weight, you need at least 2,000 to 4,000 calories per day. So this is where you have to see for yourself, what do you feel you're going to need to bring with you? So that's about 1.5 pounds to 2.5 pounds of food per day. So as you can see here, a quote from REI: a person doing 10 miles of strenuous hiking with a 4,000-foot climb will burn more calories and need more food than someone covering a few miles on a relatively flat trail. So plan accordingly. Make sure you're not, the last thing you want to do is get to camp and be starving because you ate all your food or you didn't plan accordingly. Another tip: do not store food in your tent. Again, we talked about, bear country, or not only bears, but rats, marmots, mice.
Marmots will get through. They'll chew through your thing, through your tent, which is, a couple $100, and then they'll get through anything else that you have out there.
Yeah.
So they will get in there.
Yeah, we just try to avoid it. And
you'd rather them eat the item somewhere else than chew through your expensive stuff.
And I would think about food as separate from your snacks. Like snacks are one thing. Like, kind of think about, when I do a hike that's 10 miles, what do I eat for snacks? And then plan your food accordingly and make it fun, because if you're doing a multi-day and if you're eating the same thing every single day, you'll get a little bit bored.
Yeah, so my little tip here is, obviously when you build up to this, you can look forward to some of these longer, harder days. And there were times where I was actually eating a lot of chocolate. I was having cheese, summer sausage, and M&Ms. So it's kind of a nice luxury, I'll say, to be able to eat some of the higher fatty foods and not worry about it because it's going to burn right off. Okay, so your pack, you definitely want to have, let's start with, there's a certain allocation about how you do it. You want to put like some of the heavy stuff closer to the back part of your pack. As you can see in this diagram, usually their sleeping bag is put on the bottom. I sometimes put my foam pad, I'll put it either on the bottom or I'll put it on the side. And then I usually put, just for convenience, I like to put like, my puffy jacket or jacket on the top or on the outer part, so I can quickly grab it out when I stop. I take off my pack. You want to take off your pack when you're taking some breaks. And again, if you're just taking a few minutes, let's say, it's okay to like just take it off, rest, or sit down. But after about, say, 5 minutes, you kind of want to get back up, go. But if you're actually stopping for like, lunch, definitely put on your jacket and stay warm. So I usually put a lot more things into the top, like, I put those 10 essentials. I usually always have my headlamp up there. You can kind of see in the diagram where other things go, but the most important thing is put the heaviest stuff next to your back. Okay, so moving right on to tips. All right, I think I saw someone mention about, what kind of items to get first. Honestly, I would really recommend renting stuff or borrowing stuff, because this stuff can get pretty expensive. And, it's something that you want to, as Karla was mentioning, you want to kind of ease into. And I always kind of treated it more like a game to buy something, and then that was my excuse to go out and go try it out. And so I always felt like if I bought everything right away, then that's kind of like not so fun. I kind of like to build into it. Obviously, test your gear before you go. You really want to go like car camping, test it out, maybe even test it out in your backyard, and make sure you know how to set it up. That little tube that's usually inside your tent, it's like this big. It's usually used if you happen to break a pole or snap a pole. So don't throw that away. Okay.
And know how to use it in case your tent does break, which happened to us on the JMT.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Connie knew how to use it. So, I mean, you're always learning. Just recognize that it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's okay to not know certain things, but it's fun. This is how you learn.
Yeah. So you're gonna want to, after carrying this backpack and any weight with you, just in general, even with day hiking, tends to get quite warm after about 15 minutes. So know that ahead of time. And, know that when you're going with other people that they also need a break, so the first 15 minutes, you're probably going to take off a layer, because you're going to be hot and sweating then. And then every hour, kind of like take some breaks. I like to keep a little, like a Clif Bar or some sort of like snack in my pocket, and I just take like little nibbles here and there, and then that kind of sets me up so that I'm not super hungry and starving, and then I'm always drinking too as I'm going. So you want to also drink water throughout your hike, so that way you're not thirsty. You shouldn't be thirsty. You should always be hydrating, especially in the summer. Okay, if you're going up something a little bit steep, you can look up, I think we might have a video on this on YouTube, the rest step. So the rest step is where you're kind of resting in between steps. And anyway, check that out. It's called rest step. Obviously, you may have some pain. So have some Advil, ibuprofen, just in case. Bug repellent, this is kind of the season for a lot of mosquitoes out there. So you can actually bring some bug repellent with you, or even maybe if you're going to the Sierra or some other area that's notorious for a lot of mosquitoes, you might want to bring actually like a bug net and put that over your hat, so that way they're not on your face so much. And of course, when you're going out there, you want to make sure that you're prepared for any poisonous plants. And so we want to mention these Tecnu detox wipes. Really great. There's 12 of them inside that package. You could just bring a few of them. They're nice. It's nice and lightweight. So that way, if you happen to come across something, you're not itching and then spreading it. And last thing you want is when you're backpacking is to have a rash and to have that for a couple days. So it's worthy checking that out. All right, blisters. Blisters do happen because you're going to have more weight on you. So immediately when you have a hot spot, stop, pull off your backpack, get your moleskin out, get your tape out, and take care of that blister right away. I usually like to put it's a breathable tape. It's and I put that on usually on the back of my heels. And sometimes I even just do it as preparation. So even though I just don't want to stop and worry about it. So I'll even put it on before my hikes.
One of the most important things just before we switch on over is self-care, on the trails. Like if you need to stop to hydrate, or if you need to stop for a snack, if you're feeling that hot spot, take care of yourself, because that is going to make the difference between a great trip and a not so great trip. So just make sure that you're comfortable with being your own advocate.
All right. So a couple more tips here. I personally like the battery packs instead of the solar chargers. And of course, make sure you bring your charging cord. Something that will last, maybe fill up your battery, whatever phone you have, for a couple days is ideal. It's always great to arrive at your campsite in the daylight, so it's way easier to see what's going on, where you're actually going to place your camp setup. Always carry a map in a Ziploc bag. A lot of maps that you buy, like Tom Harris maps, are usually waterproof, but it's still a good practice to put things in a Ziploc bag. And camp on durable surfaces. This is part of Leave No Trace. Make sure that you're not camping on some living soil. Using the bathroom. So that's going to be something where you kind of want to do that 200 feet away from lakes and streams. And a little something extra, for women, there's something called the Karla cloth. Maybe you might want to mention.
Yeah. So definitely, as you're thinking about getting out there, something we like to teach is obviously pack it in, pack it out. So we are trying to educate you to obviously use less toilet paper. One of the ways to do that is to have a Karla cloth. I actually just started using mine this year.
It's a pea cloth. It's for women.
Yep. And so basically you wipe not with the pretty side, but the black side, and it has some antimicrobial properties. And then you can leave it open and let it dry out in the sunlight, or close it if you want to be more discreet. But anyways, it's just a great product for people who are hiking day hikes or backpacking. And we just launched our very own. And so you can see a picture of it there. You can get it on our website. We only ordered, we didn't order a lot more than the pre-order. So there's only a few left. So if you want one, check it out and make sure to buy it before they're sold out. Yeah. They're great. I love them. And basically just make sure you're camping and using the restroom at least 200 feet from lakes and streams. Please familiarize yourself with Leave No Trace. That's super important for us here at 52. Since we're helping to get so many people outdoors, we also want to make sure that you're being a good trail steward. So please take the time to take the free Leave No Trace course online. And we're also a partner with Leave No Trace this year, thanks to you guys.
Yep. All right. So I guess just a few more things here on our tips. When you're putting out your tent, you do want to have your head a little bit higher than your feet. Okay. So, and of course, try to make it a little in an even area. And we already talked about keeping the food items away from camp, and enjoy. This is it's not just about going out and hiking, but it's about actually enjoying your time when you're out there.
We wanted to share, if you're in Southern California, these are two of our partners this year, and Trailblaze, backpacking.org. And that is actually a campaign through Make-A-Wish Foundation. They're raising funds for kids who are fighting different life-threatening diseases and illnesses. And so this is an event coming up here November 4th through the 6th. It's going to be 3 days, 2 nights, 30 miles of backpacking on the PCT, all together with their group and community. And they offer so much. They're going to be having training hikes and educational courses. I mean, I could go on and on. There's so much to learn. Please check them out if you are in Southern California, interested in backpacking, but going with this great community and doing it for a great cause. And then Highlander, it's their first year here in Southern California. They are hosting a 60, 30, 15-mile event, and they are going to be hosting this in Big Bear Lake. It's actually more of a festival type of a event where you're going to get to backpack along with other people. They'll have different stations where there'll be, you know, presentations and yoga. And if you'd like and you're interested, you can get 20% off with this discount code, 52 hikes, Big Bear 20. Use that between today and July the 17th. And lastly, we wanted to share with you guys that we just launched our first mini challenge. And this is the summer series mini challenge. And Phillip, do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so basically what we're aiming for is getting you outdoors for at least 2.5 hours. It's actually 150 minutes every single week. And you could break it down into several different ways, whether you're going out for, you know, kind of like, you know, lunch breaks, something after work, you know, 30 minutes, 5 days a week. That kind of gets you your 150 minimum, or a longer weekend, at least 2.5 hours out there. And this is something that we're launching because we found a lot of people want to have some more challenges that were more, I'm going to say, agreeable with their weather. So obviously there are places that are getting really hot in the summer, and there are places that are normally really cold in the winter. And so this kind of accommodates some of those people, and we really want you to stay motivated. So we put out these quarterly challenges, or we're now launching these quarterly challenges to keep you motivated. Okay, let's move on to our questions.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot, so bear with us.
We're gonna hang out here, so you know, don't worry about that part.
All right, give us a second as we get ready to see what kind of questions we've got here.
Let's do the Zoom.
All right. All right, give us a sec as we get ready to go through the chat here. All right, let's see. Let's start with, geez, there's so much. So if you guys can keep yourselves muted for now, that would be great. And ask your questions in the chat, please.
We're gonna try to go in order.
Yeah, and there, you know what? This is an intro to backpacking. There is so much more to learn. We cannot cover everything. There is so much more. Like, we actually need probably like 3 classes, but we'll try to do our best. So let's see what we got here. So
yeah, so our first one is actually just a comment, and I'm just gonna kind of reiterate. Yeah, it's okay to have only hiked, say, about 4 miles. And, you know, we, as Karla mentioned, we want to start out slow and easy, not necessarily go on like a big 10-mile hike. I would recommend actually backpacking less than 10 miles to your campsite. So anything more than 10 miles is actually going to be a little bit more arduous, because if as your first time, you're carrying a lot of weight, and depending on the terrain. So something like a 4 or 5, maybe 6-mile hike in would be great.
okay, quick correction. Melinda let us know that Gut Hook is now far out. So in case you are interested in looking up that app, they do have a ton of different trails. Actually, they have tons of maps. So Far Out is the company now.
Okay, so Haley asked, gear necessities on a budget. We actually get this one a lot. I would totally recommend hiking poles, trekking poles, and I would also recommend good shoes. So those are kind of like the main ones at first, and then you can graduate into some different items. Depending again how far you're going. The lightweight stuff, it really makes a huge difference when you're going up, like, for longer periods. For again, it depends on you. If you have osteoporosis or something like that, you're of course, it's probably better to splurge, because you're going to be probably it's going to be heavier. So anyway, I just kind of want to make sure that we're kind of gauging that right. But what do you think would be your
gear
top,
when
your
it comes
top
to
ones?
backpacking? When it comes to backpacking, I absolutely think that it's really important. The pack is going to be really important in addition to your footwear, right? Like you need that. You're absolutely going to need a pad. So you can get away with not having the Z rest that we showed you, and just having or using the Z rest and not using a pad. Just make sure that you have the right R value that Phillip was sharing earlier. And then you're going to absolutely need that, your sleeping bag. So I feel like when it comes to backpacking, it's not like you can really cut corners, because those are essentials that you're going to need. The main thing is take your time to gather those items and ask people to loan you things. I've had so many people that I've shared things with, let them test them out, just because I know how it took me a long time to personally get everything. And I actually, when I first started backpacking, I bought my stuff used at one point, because it does take quite a bit of funds. So
REI has a used gear sale,
yeah,
and so take advantage of that. They also have a lot of stuff on their REI outlet. But again, you can rent your backpack, you can rent your sleeping bag, you can rent.
I think you can even rent the pads and everything.
I believe you can.
Yeah. So we have a question here. What do you recommend for a good base weight?
How much weight to carry?
Yeah. I know that some people are really concerned about that. And
so I would say I'm probably usually about 30 pounds.
Yeah, I was going to say 30. If you can get to 30, that's actually quite good.
It is. Yeah.
When I did the JMT, I had like 50 plus pounds. I was
50,
like,
50 is not fun.
No.
You feel it every time.
Yeah. And so things you can do, obviously, to get your weight down is, repackaging things. That's one of the top ways. We talked about reusing clothes and things like that you might not think, as you're, even for me, I don't bring a sit pad. Some people want to bring a sit pad. I'm like, I don't want that extra weight. So I try to leave as much stuff as I can and just kind of stick to the most important things. And as you go, that's why we talked about testing it out. As you go, you're going to figure out what you need and what you don't need.
And just also just want to throw out there, talking about now, again, you're totally sacrificing quite a few things, but if you really want to, like, say, just do bars, you could actually not have a cooking camp set. I've actually brought some, I think it was like Indian food in a package, and I didn't even cook it, and I just tore it open and ate it. And so that was my dinner. And then I had some breakfast bars, and then of course bars. So anyway, all right. So we have a question about how to deal with stranger danger. So generally speaking, the outdoors is relatively safe. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the biggest things as yourself, one of the biggest things we tell people is go somewhere. There's two things right now. Okay. So there's hiking and there's backpacking. And when you're hiking, we tell people try to go to trails that are a little more populated, because then you are around people. If anything happens, having those GPS devices, there's All Trails, for example, has something called Lifeline now that you can let someone know where you're going, what time to expect you back. Things that as you get out on the trail and you feel very secure and confident with, following your intuition and things like that are going to be important. Like as you get out there, you're developing that confidence, right? And so, if you're really genuinely concerned, there are courses out there for like self-defense, things of that sort. the main thing that you want to do is, if you are going to be doing any backpacks by yourself, which when we did the JMT, I came across a lot of women on their own, you know, and the main thing is do your due diligence. I mean, you can call the ranger station, you can ask questions. A lot of times the worst case scenario is more in our mind. We think a lot worse than what really is happening. So picking up the phone, calling the ranger station and saying, hey, I'm having this fear. Can you tell me if there's been anything that I should be concerned about? You know, that really will help you as you are getting out there, but building your own self-confidence and being able to trust yourself, your own instincts. And then if something, knock on wood, ever happened, how do I ensure that I can protect myself, right? And so for me, I personally carry, you know, I have a tool. If I needed to, I know that I could use that, but I also feel very safe that, you know, I'm not concerned that anything will happen. So that just takes time to build up upon your years of hiking and getting outdoors. Definitely we'll just recommend to look up some self-defense classes if you are really concerned.
Yeah. So of course you could always use trekking poles, and you know, if you have a knife, go, you know, that could you know, help you if you feel more concerned about it. So we have another question now, talking about what do you do about encountering wildlife, like mountain lions, bears, foxes? Well, there's actually different things you do for different animals.
Yep.
And so unfortunately, we didn't have the time to really go through it today, and I don't think we can at this moment. But like, for example, you definitely want to look that up. We actually have a blog on it. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, if you're going to like bear country, where it's like bear country, like, you know, Wyoming, you know, you want to carry bear spray with you. It's kind of like almost mandatory. I've never seen anybody without it. And, you know, but there are bears in the Sierras, and it's rare that people carry the bear spray down there.
Yeah. So the main thing is know before you go, as we mentioned earlier. And when you know what animals you're going to encounter, then you need to look up what to do in case I encounter X bear, you know, X animal. So here in Southern California, just real quick, we have a lot of rattlesnakes. And so you kind of want to just let it be and let it just slither away. You don't want to throw rocks at it. So anyhow, knowing what you may encounter and what to do if you encounter it is the first step. And recognizing that, you know, a lot of times you're not really going to come across, most likely, a lot of animals on the trail. And if you do, at least you're going to be prepared. But really important to do that research beforehand and know what to do. Okay. Calling the ranger station is also really great. They could give you tips as well.
Let's see, tips for backpacking with dogs. Well, my first tip is make sure you can bring your dog.
Yeah.
So not all trails allow dogs. And then I don't know.
Keep them on leash.
We haven't ever taken a dog out camping.
We have not, but you know, the main thing is bring a first aid kit for your animal. Bring enough food and water for them. Obviously, you know, you want to test out your dog as well. Make sure he can make that trail. Like,
yeah, so, and depending on the terrain, I will say this much. You know, this is true just for even day hikes with dogs. You know, their paws are sensitive, and so if it's hot, you know, you probably want to consider some sort of booty for their paws, or if the terrain is really rugged and sharp, you know, a booty for their feet. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do have some notes here as well. So if you are going to be somewhere where it is going to be chilly, but also for redundancy, Melinda over on Facebook suggested that you do a thermarest with your inflatable, which actually I also like doing, because I've had a situation once where my pad wasn't working and it was really not fun. So that's definitely an option. Just recognize that you can also just go with one, but this is just a great way to ensure that you have some sort of coverage for your mattress or your sleeping pad situation. And Linda wanted to know, would we put electrolyte powder in my hydration pack? I do not recommend that personally, because I feel like when that just could lead to a lot more bacteria. So I personally like putting my electrolyte powder in some sort of a separate container. Just a quick note, it is 7:08, so we will stay on, but if anyone needs to leave, we will have a recording of the presentation. So you can see that on YouTube. We will be posting that in a couple days, and so you can watch it again.
Mhm.
How are you doing with questions?
I think we got pretty much most of the questions on Zoom.
All right, great. Well, we still have some here. Let's see.
I think it'd be okay if you did want to unmute yourself and ask a question, you're welcome to do so.
Kelly was adding that KT tape is awesome for preventing blisters. Melinda also added Leukotape, which is what I used, and it definitely lasts for a long time. So that was a lifesaver on the JMT. So just, you know, if you want to notate either of those for blister tape. All right, let's see. Someone wanted to know if we know of any companies that rent in the East. I know REI does rentals, so hopefully you have an REI near you. And if not, if someone wants to jump into Facebook and let Marie know, she's in New Hampshire. Okay, so any specifics for older beginner backpackers? She's 70, April, man, I love it. I love that. So inspiring. So yeah, I mean, the biggest thing again is, you know, starting with those shorter backpacks, something that's like a 2 to 3 mile hike in. And then again, you know, maybe trying to go with something more lightweight, I think is a great way to start, and going with a group. Looking up, there's backpacking groups online, there's meetups, so that you can go with people who have done it before you. And that also, if you bring friends along with you, you know, one time I went on a backpacking trip with a bunch of girlfriends, and one of the girls was pregnant, and we all carried her things. Mm-hmm. And so having people that you can share the experience in and can help you to carry some of that weight is a wonderful way. And April, I just want to share, like, put it out there. Put it out there and say to people, hey, I want to go backpacking. Is anyone interested in going with me? You know, my backpacking friend from that I did the JMT with is, you know, she is older than me, and it was amazing. Like, I feel like I've learned so much from her. And so I love having friendships with people who are older than me and younger than me, because I'm teaching someone and then I'm learning from someone else. So don't be afraid to put it out there and share that with people that you're looking to backpack and who wants to join you.
Yeah, I was gonna also put a little shout out for those people who happen to be in Southern California. The Sierra Club also does some courses where you can learn from them. It's volunteer. You actually do, I think you need to become a Sierra Club member, and even though the people are volunteers, you still pay. It's a nonprofit.
Well worth it. I did the course. It's called did you say
Wilderness Travel Course,
WTC. I think back when I did it, it was like $300 something, but it was well worth the money. I learned so much. They even taught like navigation and compass, which is a whole nother topic we didn't get into today.
Yeah, there is quite a bit more that we haven't really touched on.
There's a lot. There's a lot. This was intro. We just wanted to do a quick run through, but yeah, there is a lot to learn. This is a very detailed class. So actually, just to clarify, I guess they were asking about base weight is only your shelter, tent, tarp, hammock, bivvy, etc. So it's just your sleep system and backpack. we don't have, I wouldn't say that we have any metrics for that. I really base it more off of total weight. So if you're interested more or less into those types of specifics, I would definitely do some research online and kind of see what people recommend, because I feel like that's such a personal preference. You know, if you're getting most of the stuff that's available at REI, your base weight is going to be probably the same versus if you go ultra lightweight.
Okay. All right. We have a question here now. Water. How do you know whether to filter or purify water from the water source? So I personally like to filter the water, and I don't really use those tablets to you know, to anyway. So I always filter, and if the filter will take out the bacteria. You need actually another device to go on it if you want to filter out the viruses. The viruses are smaller than the bacteria, and but I would say I've been safe usually, just, you know, again, with something like where I'm just filtering for the bacteria, but again, if you do want something you know, more, then there is another additional filter for viruses.
I was going to say that someone wanted us to please go over the tents one more time, which we can.
Sure.
And then before we do that, Michelle wanted to know, how much water do you typically carry at one time? That is going to depend, remember, on what we said earlier. It's, you know before you go. Where are your water stations?
Yeah, it depends on how far your water stations are. You know, you could, like, let's say, for example, you're gonna go to a campsite that's 3 or 4 miles in. You might want to just bring 1 liter with you. I would probably do 2, just to be like, you know, safe. Just to be safe
and have extra water, because you never know.
Right.
And also, there's been times where one time we were backpacking and there was supposed to be a water source and it was dry. So that's the thing you don't want to do. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm super thirsty and I was counting on this water source. So for us on the JMT, there was a lot of water when we did it. So we ended up at some point realizing if we had 1.5 liters at all times, we usually were perfectly fine. There was a lot of water that season, but if you're going to do a hike into a lake, let's say 7 miles in, you're definitely going to probably want to have 2 to 3 liters. And then also, are you camping around different lakes? Are you camping around rivers or not? Because there are dry conditions out there that you may have to literally carry all the water with you. I know when we do Joshua Tree, we usually have to bring extra water in our Nalgene's and stuff like that, because there is no water around that area. So it's just going to depend as you are, as you're thinking about where you're going and planning ahead. So we are going to really quickly just share our presentation one more time for the tents, and just give us one moment as we get that situated here.
Feel free to ask any other questions you have in the chat.
Okay, so yes, so for the tent, we have, okay, so let's go over the shelter. So the tents on our my right-hand side is more of a 3-season, meaning spring, summer, and fall tents. And those are, like Phillip mentioned, they're a little more breathable, they're a little bit more lightweight, and those are great for those seasons. That's why it's called the 3-season tent. Okay, there's many different options. There's a 1-man on the bottom, which is for if you're just going on your own, or 2-man up on top. I know REI and companies now are making also plus-sized tents. So as you are looking for special specific gear that might be special for you, just recognize that they are starting to make different sizes for these as well. On our left, the 4-season tent is more for snow conditions, colder climates. When Phillip goes and does mountaineering, he would bring something like this, because you definitely don't want to be cold at night, and this will help with that protection against wind, snow, and just be a little bit more insulated. Okay. And then on the bottom is a bivvy, and it's not something that we usually recommend people use. We personally, we like, for example, I'll use the 1-person tent. We use the 2-man. The bivvy I have taken before. It's just super lightweight. It's small in a bag. But the thing is that you don't really have space to put anything inside. It's just your body, your sleeping pad, and your sleeping bag inside of this little tiny thing. So if you're claustrophobic, like take that off the list. Don't even think about it. But if you're someone that's like, I want to go super lightweight and I don't care, it's not going to bug me, I'll leave my backpack outside, that might be an option for you. We did not talk about ultra lightweight. There's a whole nother slew of tents that are super lightweight. They weigh like almost nothing. You know, you can use for example, your trekking poles to set them up. Z-Pack, for example, is a brand that makes ultra lightweight tents. So again, those tents are going to run closer to $600 versus what might run you $300 at REI for one of these 3-season tents. And the 4-season is obviously also going to be more costly. So I hope that.
And that was a question that, so we have some more questions coming in. That was a question, you know, about using, you know, poles, freestanding, or something that we use while setting up your poles. I personally like the freestanding ones. I tend to leave the tent when I go out for like a summit or whatever. I'm coming back later. It's very typical that I'll leave the camp set up, and I'll actually leave a lot of my extra gear and stuff in there. I've never had anybody steal it or do any disruption. So anyway, then I take my trekking poles with me, and so I can go out and go do that.
Marie, who wanted to know about tents, wanted to know if we use ultralight and also what brands we use. So no, I personally have not used an ultra lightweight. I think they're great. I just haven't personally made that investment. And I use the REI. Usually I use this tent here, which is called what is the name of the tent we use?
There's the quarter dome.
Quarter dome. That's the one I usually use. I use the 1-person when I'm by myself, or I use the 2-man when we're together. Or sometimes when I go with friends and we want to share. And then, yes, there's so many brands out there. There's Nemo, there's MSR, there is Big Agnes. I'm sure people could add in their favorite tents into the chat as well.
So Mark asked a question, are there any water sources you would never drink from, even after purifying? Well, you know, there's definitely, I would say, I try to go away from stagnant areas. I try to go where there's like a river or some sort of like a stream. Generally when the water is kind of pouring over the rocks and, you know, maybe it looks like some of the particles have been taken out. I personally don't like to have algae and all that, you know, mosquito larvae. And so, you know, I'll get the water from that kind of area. So I tend to look for running water. Is really
ideally our lakes that are you know, pretty full, like alpine lakes and stuff like that. I personally agree with Phillip. Unless it was an emergency, I would try to go somewhere where there's you know, some sort of a stream or a creek or something like that.
So someone had a question about live straws. I don't have a personal experience with it. However, I will say my opinion is to get something that filters more water. You know, it's not really going to be enough to just suck on some water and just get a little bit at a time. You're really going to want to have a good amount of water with you. And that's why we're recommending like the gravity filter and stuff like that. So you can fill up your entire your entire bottle or your bladder. And that way you make sure that you have enough water with you.
Yeah, I think you know, earlier we talked about like the Sawyer mini filter being as a backup. I think that's the same with the life straw. You know, it's going to be, and I'm not too familiar with if they have something other than their little straw, which I would almost put in my emergency kit. So that's kind of like a situation where you really need to have something like that on hand. Brenna wants to know any advice for first-time hammocker.
Ooh,
Just
it's fun.
Call to check just called to check if hanging hammocks are allowed at a location, question mark. And of course, knowing the terrain to know that good trees are around and look up for window markers above. So we are actually new to hammocking, and one of the biggest things we found out was definitely call and find out if it's allowed.
Yeah.
Because some places do not allow it, and some national parks do. We found an article that said which parks do. So absolutely calling. Yes. Then we just started hammocking. And
I like it.
it's fun, but we also realized it's not that easy to find trees that are like perfect size.
Yeah,
and
you're going to want to find the trees somewhere in the neighborhood of about 12 to about 15 feet apart. Just so that, because if it's too far, you're not gonna have enough webbing, and if it's too close, you're not really gonna get that nice hammock. And again, you definitely have to know before you go. There are some trees you're not allowed to hang the hammock on, and so you got to check in with the park ranger and ask about that. And you can do your research online. There are some national parks that will allow it and some that don't.
Yep.
But yeah, it's fun. And once you do get out there, a little bit different scenario. So sometimes they have, it's called an under quilt, and it looks like a little down blanket that you put underneath the hammock, because if you were to kind of put yourself on top of there, kind of smash it, the sleeping bag, it kind of smashes on top and doesn't provide that insulation. Anyway, check it out. Okay.
Anything else?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah. So we hope you guys learned a little bit. This is not the be all end all. We just wanted to provide you some different ideas, products, things that we've learned. But really the main thing is that as you get out there, you are going to learn, right? And so again, finding friends that you can go with is a great place to start. Just getting out there, right? That's the first step. And going to your local outdoor retailer, asking people for help. A lot of times people have told us they go into the groups. We have our Facebook groups, going in there, asking questions. People are so happy to provide feedback and information. So definitely make use of that. And we hope you have a fun backpacking trip. If you go backpacking thanks to this class, shoot us an email, let us know, send us a picture. We love to hear from you guys. We really appreciate it. We love just all the stories we hear. And yeah, we'll get ready to wrap it up here.
Okay. Well then, I guess until next time. So we hope to see you on the trails.